recognizing our interconnectedness, our fundamental interconnectedness, and the spiritual power that comes with that recognition seems like an idea whose time has come. And
Just a breath as we begin our exploration.
I don't even know what to say. It's a night. What do we say, Isabel? What kind of a night is it? It's a nail biting night in the U.S. and there's a lot of feelings and a lot of anxieties, and it, in a way, I woke up thinking, oh my goodness, it's only our second meeting, and we have such a challenge to deal with everybody's feelings and thoughts about where we are and about the election, which isn't just the U.S. Issue, but people are all over are sort of watching this show, and that it's maybe the right night for us to have our community empowerment to gather to support each other. And we're going to see if we can make a developmental leap here in this and meet the challenge of, within this evening, becoming able to really listen to each other. We are taking on the job of understanding of a radical philosophical notion of interconnectedness. And it's a mindful and a heartful. And it's not enough to understand it intellectually. We have to get it in our kishkas. Does anybody know what kishkas are? I bet Ruth does. We have to get it here in our guts. The first principle of focusing philosophy is that we aren't made out of separate things. Jean calls that the unit model. There's this person here that's this thing, and this person here that's this thing, and they're interacting or colliding. But Jean is inviting us to a different way of thinking, not thinking about things, separate things, but thinking about the nature of life as interaction. And many spiritual traditions have this kind of idea too, of that we're made out of interaction. We are interaction. And the thing that's hard to grasp is that we are absolutely individual, unique, complex, irreplaceable individuals. There's nobody like any of us. And each of us knows something about the whole, about the universe, that nobody else can know because of our experience, because of our heritage, because of our genes, because of all kinds of things. That we're absolutely unique and limitlessly complex. That we tune into ourselves and it goes way out to other generations and to the future, and to this body wisdom that's so organic and that has this flow of life in it. And at the same time, we're inseparable. We are one organism. The biblical metaphor, which I think is a good one, is that we are one body. But each aspect of the body is very different than every other aspect, but we are one body. And recently I've been taking heart by watching this show, and I'll put it in the chat. Maybe Isabel, you could put it in the chat for me. It's on PBS called The Age of Nature. And in this show, it's demonstrating how ecological systems, healthy ecological systems, are dependent on the biodiversity, dependent on all of these things interacting with each other. And every little creature is an essential part of that biodiversity, and you'll see that. But that's a wonderful sort of model for our getting our minds around ourselves as the human diversity, the human system that is all one organism together. And some of you watched Greg Madison's talk about inner democracy, about all the voices within us that need to be heard and all the voices between us, and that there isn't this big difference between the inside and the outside. So we have to have the diversity of ourselves and the diversity of each other in order to have the well-being of our human ecosystem. Now, can we get our minds around that at a time of incredible separations and gaps? How can we? I think maybe to understand that it's absolutely natural for us as humans when we're stressed and overwhelmed with complexity and uncertainty, what we do is we simplify. We simplify all this complexity so we can feel some kind of order. And the way that we do that is we have an us and a them. We're like this, but they're like that. I can't talk to them. I can't even be curious about what they think because that's them. Can't understand them. There's a good and a bad, and these dichotomies are very, very natural to us. And it's very difficult to put that together, that we are one interaction, and yet our instinct in times of stress, as Clara put it, is fight, flight, black, white, right, wrong. Let's see if we could just make space for that human tendency. I want to say to you that my deepest conviction is that the only thing, and that may sound like an exaggeration, but I'm going to say it like that, the only thing that can help us to rebalance our world, to be in that forward movement flow, is the sense of interconnectedness that leads us to listening. Listening is the action, is the practice of interconnectedness. And that's why it's so hard when you're anxious to really listen, to really be curious. We just wait until the other person stops so we can rebut what they said, or we can show them a better way to think, or set them straight. I mean, all of us, we want to have the right reply. So we listen to reply, not to understand. And from my point of view, that practice of interconnectedness, that's listening, is like planting a tree. Anytime we can really listen, especially to somebody we don't understand, somebody that that threatens us, somebody that we don't like, or somebody that we're in a fight with in ourselves, when we can make that space of being at home enough in ourselves and our own conflicting voices to really listen. It's like planting a tree that's going to have roots and keep the soil in the ground and have oxygen in the air, and is going to make the kind of system that we can all thrive, and all of the different uniquenesses of us can thrive. Now that sounds a little overly pie in the sky, I think, in a moment like this, and optimistic. But let's see if we can find that place in ourselves, that focusing place, that bodily place, that home in ourselves. Take a breath into that. That home of ourselves has a lot of room in it, and we can feel safe there. The home of ourselves and the home of this us that we're making together. We can feel safe, and safe enough to find that little bit of curiosity and openness toward ourselves, all the parts of ourselves, and toward the others. We can find that settledness that empowers us to make that bridge of listening. When you listen to someone, you're never the same anymore. The next thing you say will be different than it would before, because whatever they're saying, if you're really listening, it's going to change you. And listening as the act of interconnectedness requires us to give ourselves up in a way, to put ourselves aside, to enter the world of another, and at the same time to be, I'm going to use Shaka Fe's word, tethered to the deep roots of ourselves and our own home base within our bodies. So this is a time when we're going to see if we can be an organism that listens, like one big ear. And anybody who has anything to say, it doesn't have to be uh, about the election or anything. It doesn't have to be about anything in particular. It's what comes to you, what's there for you. And I'd like to ask you again to be brief so that we can have space for everybody, and see what happens to us as we listen to each other. Let's see what we make together as we listen to each other. What happens to this us as it, as Jean would say, gets thicker and thicker with all of the intricacy that each one of us brings. One more breath, and now anyone is welcome